You were just the safe option. I needed more excitement. My girlfriend humiliated me on speaker in front of her drunk friends and dumped me like a prop for entertainment. I simply said, "Okay, I understand," then walked away and erased her entire world in one single night. She left me over speakerphone so her friends could laugh. No warning, no context, just a 6-second performance for a table full of Prosecco-drunk hens. I was in the middle of finalizing our quarterly statements, something she never asked about because numbers bored her. And yet, somehow, those numbers always paid for her nails, her streaming services, her weekend flights to disconnect. The phone rang, and I answered out of habit. The giggles in the background should have been my first clue. Casey's voice came through, high and with a feigned sadness. "Mark, it's over. Don't text me. Don't call me. Just move on." "Okay." Laughter followed. One of her friends even said, "Oh my God," as if it were an episode of some reality show and not the end of a 6-year relationship. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't ask why. I didn't plead. I simply replied, "Okay, I understand." And I hung up. The call lasted 13 seconds. That's how long it took for her to throw overboard everything I had built. I didn't burst with anger. I didn't cry. I didn't even close my laptop. I simply moved my cursor to a folder called Casey Exit and opened the checklist I had started 11 months ago. Because no man builds a life with someone like Casey without having a contingency file. You don't walk blindly into a burning building without a fire extinguisher. Her joke was the match. My plan was the firewall. Side note, if you've made it this far, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. More than 90% of you listen without doing so, but that keeps this thing going and gives my team a reason to keep digging deeper. Back to Casey. She had become arrogant in the last year. Something changed after her influencer account surpassed 20,000 followers. Suddenly, I was a fuddy-duddy and she started calling me her sponsor in front of her friends, as if I were some kind of sugar daddy. She acted on a whim, but what she didn't know, and what none of them knew, was that the house she was strutting around in was not in her name. Neither was the downtown apartment, nor the car, nor the trust fund she kept asking about with that fake casualness. "So what's our 5-year plan?" Her voice. I had learned early on that Casey didn't like boundaries, but she hated paperwork even more. That call, that little humiliating public stunt, was not just rude, it was legal gold, because here's the part that most of her friends missed between sips of rose and fake concern. Almost had just verbally acknowledged the end of the relationship on a recorded line with witnesses, which meant she couldn't claim abandonment. She couldn't claim verbal abuse. She couldn't claim surprise. It meant I could activate the final phase of the plan without looking like the villain. So while they poured another round and posted stories with the caption "Girls Night Fire, Nail Polish," I made 4 quiet moves. I revoked her access to the apartment remotely. I deactivated her corporate credit card. I paused the joint subscription accounts she used for brand deals, and I scheduled a locksmith for the main property the next morning. No messages, no confrontation, no sad playlist in the background, just methodical silence. Casey thought silence meant weakness. She thought men only had power when they shouted. She never understood that some of us don't shout when we're done. We execute quietly, cleanly. And by the time her mother found out, by the time she screamed over the phone about what he had done to the house, the gears had already turned too far to stop. But at that moment, the moment after the call, while she was probably raising her wine glass in victory, I leaned back in my chair, adjusted my reading glasses, and checked off the next item on the list. Trigger completed. Almost woke up around 10:40 the next morning with a dull head and half a lime wedge still stuck to her thigh. Her phone was where she had dropped it, face down, vibrating gently on the rug from some notification she ignored. She rubbed her eyes, reached for it, and finally looked. No missed calls, no text messages, not even a reaction to the photos she and her friends posted last night. Boomerang of clinking wine glasses, filtered photos of there, were done with a moment with nail polish and skulls. She scrolled through her camera roll, stopped on the blurry screen recording of the call, where she broke up with Mark on speakerphone. Her voice sounded slurred but triumphant. "It's over, Mark. Don't text me. Don't call me." One of the girls had laughed so hard she fell off the bench. Almost smiled to herself smugly and checked his location. Mark always had it on, mostly because he was that predictable. Now location not available. She blinked, checked again, closed and reopened the app. Nothing. Well, she muttered, tossing the phone aside. Someone's getting dramatic. She tried sending him a text. Just one word. Seriously. The message showed as delivered, but there was no reply, no bubbles to indicate he was typing, no read receipt. Unfazed, she threw on her hoodie and went down to meet two of her friends for brunch. The apartment doorman didn't even look up as she crossed the lobby. Why would he? Almost had lived there for over a year. Well, she had stayed there. Technically, the lease was in Mark's name. Her name had never been on the utility bills either. As she stepped out onto the street, she noticed something odd. Her building access card didn't beep when she passed the front door. She tried again. No light, no buzz. It probably needs recharging, she muttered, or the system is just glitching. It was not. Still, she got to the cafe, sat down, ordered her usual overpriced oat milk latte and truffled eggs. And when the bill came, her card was declined. She blinked. Try it again. The waiter tried, then offered a forced smile. Would you like to try another form of payment, ma'am? Almost laughed nervously. She pulled out another card. That one barely worked. On the way home, she called her mother. She hadn't spoken to her since the drunken performance the night before. Cassie started with a bored sigh. Ugh, Mark is being weird. He's ghosting me. He's probably sulking. Her mother's tone did not match. Wait, did you really break up with him? Well, kind of, Casey replied, flipping her hair back. It was a joke. Her mother's voice dropped. Casey, what did you say to him exactly? Casey was already getting annoyed. It wasn't serious, Mom. We were just joking around. He knows me. It was funny. There was a pause. A long one. Then, you'd better hope he thought it was funny too. Cassie rolled her eyes. Oh, come on. He's not some vengeful psychopath, it's Mark. But even as she said it, a small crack of doubt formed in the back of her mind. She opened her old messages, scrolled through, still nothing new, no peep. The last message from him was from 2 nights ago. Do you need anything from the store? It felt clinical, like a man clearing the shelves before a storm. Almost decided to go home and fix it. Maybe he was trying to prove a point, be stoic, or whatever. She would bat her eyelashes, maybe post a cute apology, and he would fold as always. But when she got back to the building, her access card still didn't work. She buzzed the front desk, no answer. She had to wait for someone else to leave so she could slip in. When she got to the apartment door and tried to use her key, nothing. The lock had been changed. Her hands froze mid-motion. Almost stood there for a second, her heart suddenly beating too loud in her chest. She knocked. She waited. She knocked louder. The silence on the other side of the door was somehow worse than a shouting match. Casey laughed again, but this time it was a brittle laugh. Okay, you want to play games? She sent him another text. Very funny. Can you let me in now? No reply, no ellipses, no read receipt, no anything. Almost didn't know it yet, but she no longer lived in that apartment. In fact, legally speaking, she never had. Casey's panic didn't really start until she heard the click of her key refusing to turn in the front door of the Willow Lane house. The same house where she had thrown her birthday party last year, the one with the rose gold balloon arch, the hired violinist by the pool, and Mark's gift, a Cartier bracelet she pawned 2 weeks later for emergency cash. Now she stood on the threshold in last night's jeans, her messy bun tilted to one side, jamming the key into the lock over and over, as if the metal would suddenly decide it liked her. Come on, she hissed, open up. It did not. That's when she saw the van in the driveway, a plain white van with easy locksmith and security on the side. A man in cargo pants was coiling a cable with a clipboard under his arm. Hey, she shouted, what are you doing, the locksmith? He looked up, not surprised, not apologetic, just with a professionally distant air. Changing the locks, he said, tapping on the keypad he had just installed. Almost narrowed her eyes. Why? He shrugged as if it were nothing personal. Orders from the new owner. She felt a wave of ice run through her chest. What new owner? He glanced at the work order and then back at her. I can't really share that information, ma'am. I live here. And she snapped, her voice suddenly breaking. This is my house. Then you should call the owner, the locksmith said, not rudely, but with the weariness of a man who had had this same conversation more than once. Casey stormed back to her car and slammed the door so hard the side mirror trembled. She called Mark again, straight to voicemail. She called again, still nothing. She stared at the phone, her thumb hovering over the contact. Then she switched apps and dialed her mother's number. This time her mother answered on the first ring. Casey, have you seen the deed? She asked before Casey could speak. What? Casey blinked. No, What are you talking about? Listen to me very carefully, her mother said. Her voice was tight now, sharp, as if she were holding something back. You'd better pray he hasn't activated the transfer yet. Transfer? What, Mom? What's going on? The house, Casey, the house. You said it was a joke, but I don't think he saw it that way. Almost opened her mouth and closed it again. Her tongue felt too big, her jaw too loose. You told me he bought it for both of us, her mother continued. But your name was never on the mortgage. Did you even read the title? He said he was going to add me, Casey whispered. Her mother let out a bitter laugh that seemed directed at herself. You lived in a man's house for 6 years and you thought he would just add you to the papers because he liked your Instagram aesthetic. Almost's hands started to shake. The phone suddenly felt slippery, like it was trying to escape her grip. He can't just take it away from me. Cass, her mother said now in a lower voice. He hasn't taken anything from you. It was always his. Cassie ended the call without saying goodbye. She stared at the house, the one with the white columns and the stone entryway. Her house, at least the one she decorated. She chose every cushion in there. She helped design the kitchen backsplash. She insisted on the matte black fixtures. That had to count for something, right? Then she saw something that made her stomach churn. The real estate lockbox hanging on the front door. Not the kind you use for private repairs or security upgrades. The kind you use when a property is being prepared for sale to be shown. Listed. She pulled out her phone again and opened his email. Mark was old school, but he used Gmail for scheduling. She had access, or she had had it. The password autofill was gone. When she tried to log in manually, it asked for two-factor authentication. Text code sent to his phone. She did not have the code. She tried checking the bank access next. Locked out. Then the shared Dropbox access. Access denied. Her last move was the smart home system. Maybe she could still open the garage remotely, get in that way, some of her things, but the app showed her as no longer being a registered user. There was nothing left to log into. The systems weren't glitching. They had been shut down one by one, quietly, thoroughly, and weeks in advance. She tried calling Mark one last time. Still voicemail, still silence. It was the silence that finally broke her. The kind of silence you feel in your teeth, the kind of silence you can't talk over, the kind that means the decisions have already been made and you were never part of the discussion. The lawyer's office used to smell like toner and quiet defeat. Almost walked in fast, her chin held up like a shield, oversized sunglasses hiding the rawness around her eyes. She hadn't even changed her clothes, just thrown on an old cardigan and hoped no one noticed the smudge of mascara sliding down her cheek. The receptionist looked up, paused, and gave her a look that wasn't exactly rude, but wasn't friendly either. Something between recognition and reluctant sympathy. Almost cleared her throat. Hi, I need to speak to someone. Legal, urgently. It's about my partner. The receptionist didn't ask her name, just nodded towards the side hallway. The paralegal is in conference room B. You can see her now. Casey frowned. She doesn't even know who I am. She knows, the receptionist said quietly. That's when the mood shifted. The paralegal would be in her late 30s. Neat hair, kind posture. Her tie had a coffee stain near the end. He stood up when she entered, but he didn't offer his hand. Miss Langley, he said, we were expecting you. Casey froze. What? He gestured for her to sit down. I'll explain what we are legally allowed to disclose. Just try to listen before you react. I don't have time for antics, she snapped. I need to file an injunction or an appeal or whatever it is that stops him from selling the house. He gave her a patient look. You are not on the deed. I live there. And you are not married. We were engaged. There's no record of that either. Cassie slammed her purse on the table. What exactly are you saying? He opened a folder and slid it across the table. Inside were a series of neatly stamped forms, all filed weeks ago. Almost's name was highlighted several times. Every document looked like it had been printed in anticipation of this exact moment. Signed and notarized notice of separation. Signed declaration of dissolution of cohabitation. Asset protection clause under an individual trust executed. Casey blinked rapidly. Why would he file this before the breakup? The paralegal shrugged wearily. Perhaps he anticipated the volatility. Perhaps he planned ahead. That's not illegal. He was never angry, she protested. He made me breakfast 3 days ago. That doesn't mean he wasn't prepared. Almost flipped through the pages. She gasped at one particular form, an amendment to a trust. What is this? She asked. That is the trust fund from which you were an indirect beneficiary, the assistant said, pointing to the header. Technically, the fund was created in her name. Your access was through a third-party distribution clause. He canceled your beneficiary status last month. What trust fund? He raised an eyebrow. The one you have been using to cover the apartment's expenses. Your health insurance, your designer card subscriptions. Casey's lips parted. I thought those were automatically deducted from our joint account. There is no joint account, he said bluntly. There never was. Almost leaned back in her chair. Her pulse was pounding behind her ears. Now she remembered the conversations, the ones she didn't pay attention to. Mark asking her to forward receipts, telling her he would reimburse her through the foundation's account. She thought it was just a strange business quirk, some accountant jargon. He wasn't reimbursing, he was auditing. And now he was disappearing, one signed form at a time. Casey's hand was shaking as she pointed at the folder. So what? That's it. He's just erased me. He has structured her out of the plan. The assistant said gently. There is a difference that felt like a slap. He leaned forward, a little softer. Now she was not erased. She was accounted for, just not in the way you assumed. Almost looked at the legal paper trail in front of her. This was not a reaction, not spite. It was a procedure, a surgical exit plan. Her name was never really on the life she thought she was living. She was not part of the structure. She was a subscription and he had canceled it. The drive to Marissa's house seemed longer than usual. Even though Casey knew the route by heart, past the yoga studio where they used to gossip, past the vegan cafe they once swore had the best scones in town. Nostalgia clung to every corner like a guilt she couldn't shake off. She hadn't called first. She didn't want a refusal. She just showed up and rang the bell as if they were still close, as if nothing had changed in the last year. Marissa opened the door in leggings and a loose sweater, her face scrubbed clean and her eyes surprised. Casey blinked, then instinctively glanced over her shoulder. Is everything? I just need to talk. Almost cut in too quickly. Just a second, please. Marissa hesitated, then stepped aside. Yeah, sure, of course. Inside everything looked the same. The smell of cinnamon from one of those overpriced Bodby candles. The neat little table by the window with Marissa's notary kit still spread out in its usual meticulous organization. Casey sat down before she was asked. I need a favor. A big one. Marissa crossed her arms, leaning against the counter. What kind? Almost hesitated. You notarize things for Mark, right? Marissa flinched very slightly. Almost noticed it. Marissa pressed, her voice weakening. Please don't lie to me right now. He came to see you. There was a long pause. Then with a deep sigh, Maris nodded. Yes, he came. When? 2 months ago. Casey blinked. 2 months. Marissa rubbed her forehead. He said it was standard asset updates. Honestly, Cass, I thought you knew. I assumed he was protecting the estate or something. Nothing shady. What did he bring? Marissa hesitated again. Tell me, Casey demanded. I need to know what I'm up against. Marissa went to her filing cabinet, pulled a dark green folder from the second drawer, and handed it to her. It wasn't thick, but what it lacked in volume it made up for in dread. Almost opened it and immediately recognized the first page. An asset log, everything in Mark's name, the house, the apartment, the car, the BMW she always said felt like hers, the watch he gave her for her birthday. Even that was listed with a receipt proving he had bought it, not her. Why would he log that? She muttered. Marissa's voice was low. He was documenting a pattern of behavior, intent to revoke gifts, things lawyers like. The next page was a photo of Casey. She was sitting at her patio table with a glass of wine in her hand and her face flushed with laughter. A friend, probably one of the same girls from the speakerphone night, had obviously taken it during a summer get-together. The caption below was handwritten in Casey's own handwriting. Mark pays for everything. I just bring the drama. Casey's stomach clenched. What the hell is this? Marissa stepped back slightly, almost as if she was afraid of being caught in the blast wave. That video, the one from your birthday, you made a joke, remember? Someone recorded it. You were talking about how he covers everything so you can focus on your brand. I was joking. I know, said Marissa, but it was notarized as a sworn statement. Casey's hands began to shake. A statement. I wasn't stating anything. You laughed. You looked at the camera and you said, quote, if Mark ever left me, I'd need a GoFundMe to get a ride. Casey closed her eyes. The memory hit her like a slap. I thought it was funny, she whispered. It was funny to you. Almost flipped through the rest of the folder. A sworn statement of non-cohabitation that went back weeks. Emails with subject lines like change of occupancy and entrust readjustment notification. Every single item pointed to an exit strategy already in motion, and that quote, that joke, was dated, witnessed, and signed under oath with Marissa's seal. At the end, Casey looked up, her eyes glassy. Why did you do this? Marissa's face crumpled. I didn't know it was ammunition, Cass. I thought you were both just jumping through hoops. I thought it was just normal estate paperwork. None of this is normal. They sat in silence. Almost stared at the folder as if it might disappear if she blinked long enough. Her words, her jokes, her performance for the crowd, now weaponized, framed, and filed away in a drawer under the label of evidence. The worst part is she wasn't surprised, because deep down a small part of her had always known. Mark of it. Mark didn't warn. Mark didn't explode. Mark prepared. Almost was curled up on the sofa of the apartment she technically no longer had access to. A friend of hers had let her in through the side door earlier that morning. She hadn't slept. No, really, she had just been lying there in a sweatshirt that still smelled like Mark's detergent, scrolling through old messages that now meant nothing. The sound of knocking startled her. Not a gentle tap, but a frantic, uneven pounding that made her drop her phone. She opened the door, and there was her mother, hair disheveled, face pale, clutching her purse as if it contained a live wire. Mom. Her mother didn't speak at first, just walked in with the faltering step of someone who had run to a place she didn't know she needed to go. Finally, she turned to Casey and said one word. The house. Akasi's mouth went dry. I know he changed the locks, but her mother said, her voice trembling. No, 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 no. Just the locks. He filed the quitclaim deed months ago. Almost blinked. The quitclaim deed is a legal transfer. He transferred the property to an irrevocable foundation. You are not on the record. You were never a tenant. Legally, you were a guest. That's not possible, Casey whispered. He said he would add me later. He didn't. Her mother pulled out a printed page. County records. Online timestamp verified. It was real. She thrust it into Cassie's hands harder than necessary. He deeded the house to the foundation on April 17th. That was 2 months before your speakerphone stunt. Almost stared at the date. Her own birthday. The night she got drunk and told him she wanted a quiet year, and he nodded as if nothing was wrong. He had already signed the house away that same morning. Her mother started pacing. I called due. She muttered, our family lawyer. Do you know what his secretary said? She said he was in a meeting with Mark. Almost felt her soul drop to her feet. He works with Mar now. Apparently, he has been working with him. Estate structuring. Charitable trust design. Casey, he is not just making things difficult. He is rebuilding his entire legal life without you. Casey's knees buckled. She sank to the floor. I don't understand, she whispered. I thought he was just hurt. Angry about the call. I didn't think. This isn't about the call. Her mother snapped, kneeling beside her. That was just the green light. Don't you see? The call didn't change his mind. It confirmed it. Her mother looked down, her voice breaking. He had already made the decision. You just handed him the recording. Almost wanted to scream, to throw something, to go back in time 6 months and listen when Mark offered to go over the trust documents with her, and she brushed him off with a spare me the boring stuff. Now she was drowning in every boring detail she had ignored. She picked up her phone, tried to call the brokerage firm they once shared for a joint account. Disconnected. She opened the app for the electric vehicle Mark had leased for her. She couldn't access it. She opened the management company's website to check the apartment lease, only to realize there wasn't one. Everything she thought she had, she was only allowed to use. It was not hers. And now, the only man who could change that had vanished behind a wall of corporate lawyers, shell companies, and already notarized and filed documents before she even opened her mouth to mock him in front of her friends. Her mother sat beside her and slowly shook her head. I begged you not to treat him like an accessory. Almost covered her face with her hands. She thought she had shamed him into silence, but the silence had been there all along, waiting, watching, preparing. And now, with a single stroke of his pen, Mark was gone, had erased her from the records, from the assets, from the future. And the scariest part, she realized, is she didn't even know where he had gone. Almost decided the party would fix everything. Not legally, of course, not with paperwork or banks or lawyers or deeds, but optically, visually, in the way she used to fix everything, through perception, through a carefully curated moment that said, "Everything is fine. I'm thriving." It was the one thing Mark could never take away from her, the ability to gather people, to control a room, to become the protagonist of every group photo. Her birthday was in 3 days, and although the apartment was technically off-limits, now with the changed locks and revoked access, she still had the house, or so she believed. That belief did not come from confidence, but from a stubborn illusion. Mark might have cut her off. He might have frozen accounts, ignored calls, turned friends into silent traitors, but she still had the gate code. She still had the memories. She still had the address attached to her influencer bio. That had to count for something, right? So she planned the party, sent a text to the group chat, hired the same DJ from last year, ordered custom cupcakes with edible glitter and tiny wine bottles on top. She even booked the pool cleaning service under the name Cashlang Benz, a fake company she made up 5 minutes before to trick the vendor. It was all smoke and mirrors, but smoke and mirrors had worked before. What she hadn't accounted for was the sign. It wasn't even a subtle one. It was huge, glossy, hung directly on the front gate with zip ties and 4 bold bullet points: for sale, fully renovated, move-in ready, price to sell fast. The moment her first guests arrived, the smiles froze. Almost was inside the pool house curling her hair when she got the first text. "Hey, did you mean for this to be an open house?" Followed by another, "There's a real estate agent here. She asked if we were interested in making an offer." Almost dropped the curling iron, burning her wrist. She ran out barefoot, her hair half curled and her dress half zipped up her back. And there were her friends standing awkwardly by the gate, looking at a woman in a pantsuit setting up brochures on a small folding table. "Excuse me," Casey snapped. "What are you doing, the real estate agent?" She looked up surprised, but not flustered. "Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were home. We have an open house scheduled for noon." Almost blinked. "What? No, you can't. This is my party." The agent smiled politely and held out a brochure. Almost snatched it from her hand. On it, in full color, were 10 high-resolution photos of the house, living room, kitchen, pool area, even the wine cellar she used to record her skincare tutorials. And there, in bold letters, under the address, "Contact Marcellus Properties LLC for inquiries." One of her friends leaned in quietly. "Wait, Mark has a real estate agency now." Casey didn't answer. She couldn't. She stormed into the main house, her heels clacking against floors that suddenly felt like they belonged to someone else. Her steps slowed as she entered the master bedroom, her walk-in closet empty. All dresses, purses, shoes packed, labeled, stacked neatly against the back wall with blue painter's tape on each lid. Storage unit 714. Even the velvet jewelry stand was gone. Her perfume shelf clean. The only thing left was a single glass bottle of drugstore body spray and a dry cleaning tag from last year. A note had been left on the vanity mirror. Items packed and cataloged per instructions. House manager. The house had a manager now, and that manager was not her. Back outside, she heard car engines starting, people murmuring awkward goodbyes. The party playlist she had queued up on her phone was still playing. Something upbeat, shallow, fake. She walked back out, and only 3 people were left. One handed her a cupcake and shrugged. "It's a nice house. Whoever buys it will be lucky." Another added, trying to help, "At least you're getting out before the market crashes." Casey stood there silently, clutching the melting cupcake. She hadn't canceled the party because she couldn't admit to herself that that life was already gone. But now everyone else saw it. Not just the real estate sign, not just the boxes, but her. Almost a Langley, former +1 to stability. Now the awkward centerpiece of a party she wasn't hosting in a house she didn't own, celebrating a birthday that no longer felt like hers. One of the last guests turned at the gate and held up her phone. Did you know these photos are already online?" Casey's stomach twisted. Zillow, Redfin, even Facebook Marketplace. They added, "It's pretty incredible. I hope you got a good cut." Casey didn't answer because in that moment, surrounded by silence, unsold cupcake, and the faint smell of chlorine, she realized she wasn't the host. She was just part of the tour for the buyers. The voicemails started with hope. "Mark, can we please talk?" Then playful. "Okay, I get it. The silent treatment. Fine, you win." Then, confused. "Seriously, what is this? Did you change the locks? Did you close the accounts? What is going on?" By voicemail number 20, the tone of her voice had gone raw. Desperate. Please just call me back. I swear I didn't mean it like that. You know I joke. I've always been like this. It wasn't personal, it was just stupid. You know me. By number 40, her voice was shattered. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I miss you. Okay. Is that what you want to hear? I miss you. I was scared and I was stupid and I pushed you away and I'm sorry. Just call me. But Mark didn't call once. He didn't text. He didn't unblock her. He didn't even send a one-word reply. He did, however, forward something. Almost woke up to it. An anonymous number had left her a voicemail. Not a robocall, not a spam alert, just a single, chilling recording with no caller ID. She hit play thinking maybe it was a friend texting with gossip or sympathy. It was her own voice. Hey, it's Cassie. You were always the safe option. I needed excitement. Silence. Then a quiet, deliberate sigh. Hers again. I mean, yeah, you paid for everything, but at what cost? God, Mark, sometimes I felt like I was dating a spreadsheet. Click. End of message. She sat up in bed, her pulse hammering in her ears. She knew exactly when that call had taken place. Months ago, after a wine-soaked lunch, when she called him from the Uber just to pick a fight, she never thought he would have recorded it, never thought he would save it. And now someone else had it. Someone who wanted her to know they had it. Casey tentatively checked her email. The inbox was fuller than usual. At first she thought maybe her friends were reaching out. Maybe someone had seen the open house brochure and realized how bad things were. But no. The first unread subject line hit her like a brick. Board review. Membership termination. The email was short. Clinical. Dear Miss Langley, effective immediately, your board membership with the Riverside Children's Charity is terminated. Attached is a voicemail transcript received that has been formally reviewed and deemed inconsistent with our organization's values. No sign-off, no sympathy. A PDF was attached inside, a transcript of her voicemail, word for word, highlighted, dated, timestamped, filed. The charity, one of the last things that tied her to legitimacy, to public good, to the reputation she bragged about in every online bio, had cut her. Not with a warning, with a shot. Almost tried to call the board president straight to voicemail. Tried the vice president, same thing. Then she searched her own name on Twitter. Bad idea. Someone had leaked the audio. Just a clip. 16 seconds. It was already racking up. Likes, shares, comments. Another trust fund leech bites the dust dating a spreadsheet. LOL, the entitlement. And the worst one, imagine biting the hand that feeds you and then acting surprised when it stops. Casey's profile was still public. Her DMs were flooding with gifs of dumpster fires. Someone had changed her Wikipedia entry to say, is a charity board member and influencer, best known for being dumped harder than the housing market. She had spent years cultivating that image. She tried to contact an old PR friend. No reply. Her modeling agent had ghosted her months ago after the skincare sponsorship fell through. Now, even her yoga studio had unfollowed her. Every bridge she had stood on was on fire or had already collapsed. She opened her phone again. She opened her voicemails. 43 messages to Mark unanswered. She scrolled to the last one she sent. I still love you. Her voice broke. Even if I was an idiot. She hovered her finger over the delete button, but she didn't press it. Why? And what was the point? It had already been forwarded, clipped, filed, weaponized. She had always thought her downfall would come from a scandal or an affair. She never expected it would come from her own voice. Almost wore a baseball cap pulled low, sunglasses too big for her face, and a hoodie zipped up to the top. Despite the 80-degree heat, she parked 2 blocks away from the house that used to be hers. Technically it never was, but that reality hadn't quite sunk in yet. She circled the block twice before slipping through the side entrance through the garden gate, the one she had had installed to feel more European. She never imagined she would one day be using it as an intruder. From inside, she could hear voices, professional, upbeat, the sound of polite laughter. Open house. She peeked through the glass doors that led to the kitchen and saw them, a young couple in their 30s holding hands, pointing at the countertop finishes she had personally chosen. That wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the person standing next to them, smiling tightly with a clipboard in hand, Mark's assistant Sophie. 20-something, polished, surgically nice. She had once brought Casey oat milk lattes during campaign events, and now she was in her kitchen like she belonged there. Almost pushed the door open hard. Sophie looked up, unfazed. Hi, Casey. she said as if they were chatting in a boutique. Cassie's voice came out tight. What the hell is this? Sophie turned slightly to the couple. Will you excuse me for a moment? Feel free to take a look at the solarium. Those windows are original, by the way. The couple smiled politely and wandered off. Casey took a step forward. You're giving tours now. I'm managing a sale, Sophie replied calmly. You know what assistants do. Almost eyes narrowed. I want to talk to Mark. He's not here. Well, get him on the phone. Sophie tilted her head. Casey, you don't have standing. You are not a tenant, you are not a stakeholder, and you are not listed on any of the sales documentation. If you stay here, it's technically trespassing. Almost let out a short, sharp laugh. You're threatening me. Seriously, I'm reminding you of what your lawyer should have already told you. I don't have a lawyer, Casey snapped. Sophie didn't respond to that. She just reached into her briefcase and pulled out a thick manila envelope sealed with a sticker that bore the logo of Mart's real estate agency. She held it out to Casey. What is this? Casey demanded. Closure. Almost snatched it. She tore it open. Inside was a glossy, high-resolution photo, a still frame from the night of the prank call. Almost on speakerphone, wine glass raised, mouth open mid-laugh. Frozen in the exact moment she said, It's over. Don't text me. Don't call me. There was a yellow sticky note stuck to the bottom of the photo. It read, Always read the room and the contract. Almost stared at the photo. She looked carefree, powerful, untouchable, but now it felt like an obituary. This is sick, she said, her voice trembling. It's psychotic. He planned this whole circus just to humiliate me. No, said Sophie. He planned for it to end quietly. You made it public. Casey's eyes bored into her. Excuse me, Sophie's tone never changed. The speakerphone breakup, the Instagram story, the caption about him being your retirement plan. You lit the match. He just made sure you couldn't burn anything that wasn't already yours. Casey's mouth opened and closed. She looked around at the house. Her house, except it wasn't. The dining room table was gone. The sofa had been replaced with minimalist staging furniture. The wine rack was empty. The rose bush in the backyard had been pruned to code. Her chaos had been edited out of every corner. This was no longer a home. It was a transaction. She looked back at Sophie. Tell him he's a coward. I'm just the assistant. Almost backed away trembling. Her hand still clutched the envelope as if it could transform into something she could fight with. I hope he's proud of this, she hissed. Sophie didn't blink. He doesn't feel anything. He's moved on. Almost turned and left. No one followed her. No one called after her. The couple didn't even notice. She wasn't the ghost of that house. She was just noise, and even that had finally been silenced. At exactly 8 a.m., the digital ink dried. The county recorder's office uploaded the final transfer deed. The house, for bedrooms, 3.5 baths, 1 pool, 2 fireplaces, and 0 remaining emotional attachments. It was now the legal property of the August Hallow Foundation for Single Fathers. The title had been signed, notarized, reviewed, approved, and uploaded with a press release scheduled to hit inboxes at 9:01 a.m. Casey didn't see it firsthand. Her mother did, and it was her who called. The shriek came through the speakerphone before Casey even said, Hello, what have you let him do to the house? Almost was standing, barefoot in a borrowed kitchen, holding her phone in one hand and an old coffee mug in the other. It was chipped. She hadn't noticed until that moment. What? She croaked. Turn on the news. Her mother hissed breathlessly. Open your email. Read anything. I told you to get ahead of this. I told you to file something. Anything. Casey scrambled to unlock her phone. Her inbox was already exploding. Group threads. Charity updates. One from a high school friend she hadn't spoken to in years. Wow, he really did it. A journalist she used to flirt with for media coverage had tweeted a screenshot of the press release. The August Hallow Foundation is honored to accept the donation of a $1.4 million residence in Cressmore. The donor, Markellis, declined to comment publicly but provided a brief statement. Sometimes the loudest lesson is silence. The article continued. Sources confirmed the property was transferred in its entirety. No buyback clauses, no shell entities, a clean break. The donor stated he wanted the space to serve men raising children alone. Men who are often ignored until they break. Now they will have a place to breathe. Almost sank into the nearest chair. Her breath caught. Her vision blurred. The house wasn't sold. It wasn't mortgaged, or leased, or auctioned, or flipped. It was given away to men like him, the quiet ones, The invisible ones, the ones you only notice when they're gone and you realize they took the whole structure with them. Her mother's voice came back. Lower now. This was our leverage. Casey, your future, your security, your last chip. I know, she whispered. I told you he was quiet because he had already won. Casey didn't argue. She opened the press kit image. There, in sharp resolution, was her house, or what used to be. The ivy had been trimmed, the lighting staged. The description under the photo read, now available for rotating residents, single fathers in recovery, reentry, or reinvention. The tagline was brutal in its elegance, a place to start again. Mark had erased her, and in the blank space where she used to be, he had planted something permanent, not petty, not cruel, not performatively principled. And that made it all worse, because she couldn't tear it down, she couldn't call it spite, she couldn't even frame it as revenge. He had outplayed her by refusing to play her game, and the whole world was applauding him for it. Hundreds of miles away, on a porch that overlooked no ocean, no city skyline, no Instagram-worthy view, just a quiet field and a dog he had adopted last month. Mark sipped coffee from a handmade mug. The pottery was uneven, glazed in a color that almost would have called dirt. He liked it. The dog sat at his feet, his ears twitching with the wind. His phone vibrated once, a notification confirming the deed transfer was finalized. He didn't open it, he didn't check the email, he didn't call anyone to gloat. He just took another sip, watched the sun come up over the tree line, and leaned back in his chair. No anger, no regret, no noise.